Hi, everybody. Well, a couple of days later, we had a chance to let this early season playoff loss sink in while we're watching other teams like the Arizona Diamondbacks go on and do good things. Minnesota Twins as well. We'll get to the Brewers. I got a lot of things I want to get off my chest here and a few things I want to talk about, including players I would not want to tender. All that coming up next here on this edition of Locked On Brewers.
You are Locked On Brewers, your daily Milwaukee Brewers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Everybody, good to have you along here as we head to the offseason. Chuck Freeman here on Locked On Brewers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Show is brought to you by the great folks at the Gametime app. Download the Gametime app, create an account, use the promo code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. That is Gametime. Yeah, I mean, we all have some thoughts, and I've read a lot of them on Twitter. And we're going to talk a lot about this in the offseason, how we move forward, and how can this be prevented? Early exits in the postseason. Chuck Freeman, Locked On Brewers, longtime sportscaster here in Wisconsin, first-year host of Locked On Brewers, looking to be here for a long time because I absolutely love doing this podcast and talking with the great Brewer fans after each and every game. And you know what? This show is downloaded on Google, Spotify, Apple, on all the major apps. We are on all those apps. Wherever you get a podcast download, we are there. If you ever have any problems, please feel free to DM me. Hit me up, Chuck Freeman, on Twitter. Follow me anyway. I'd love to have you aboard. Chuck Freeman, Freimund. Tweet a lot about the Brewers and, of course, you know, some of our sports teams here in Wisconsin, the Packers, Bucks, and Badgers, and Marquette, and all that. So you could also find the show on YouTube. Go to YouTube, search Locked On Brewers, hit the subscribe button, hit the bell, and we are here for the next couple of weeks. We'll be here daily talking Brewers baseball with you. During the winter months, we're going to be here more times than not, 3, maybe 4 times a week, talking Brewers baseball, because there's going to be some news. There's the non-tender news. There's baseball winter meetings. There's going to be trades. There's going to be personnel decisions. There's going to be things that pop up in the middle of winter out of nowhere, or we're enjoying our winter here in Wisconsin or wherever you are, and we'll have fully covered right here on Locked On Brewers. Tomorrow on Tuesday, Matt Arnold's going to have his season-ending press conference. I was wondering when they were going to hold that, but I just got the news today. So we'll talk about that tomorrow on the show, on Tuesday's show. Some of the rumblings from that, what he has to say. And I would imagine by next Tuesday, we're not going to have a decision on Craig Counsell just yet, although it was reported that Counsell's contract runs through the end of October. So teams would technically have to, like the Mets, would have to ask the Brewers for permission. And we know how Mark Attanasio can be about that. No, this guy's with Milwaukee. This guy's with my team until October 31st. Now, if they want to give up some compensation or something like that, maybe we could talk, especially like a team like the Mets who could throw resources all over the place. So, yeah, if I'm Attanasio, I wouldn't let the Mets so quickly talk with Craig Counsell unless you're coming back and doing something for me. You're giving us a prospect, you're giving us some money or whatever, helping us out because, yeah, he's under contract to October 31st. We made a financial commitment to him. He's made a commitment to us October 31st. What are you going to do for us, Mets? That's especially a team like the Mets, those big markets. I play hardball with those guys all day long. You know, they want to stomp on us all the time. Well, we're gonna get something a little back from them. So that's going to happen on Tuesday. Not the negotiation with the New York Mets. Who knows? But we'll see what Matt Arnold's got to say about a lot of different things. I like Sal Frelick's takeaway. I like this takeaway after the game. I saw this in Adam McCalvy's piece from Brewers.com. He says, Adam asked him, what are you going to take away from the season? And Sal could have said, well, home run, this. He said, I'm going to take away this feeling right here, the feeling of losing. And yes, that is a motivator going into the offseason. Now, I hope he really believes that. But yeah, that was great to see. He did not go out and say, well, we won 92 games. We did this. No, they fell short of expectations again. Okay? Don't ever be satisfied with just them getting to the postseason. They are not like a mid-major team in college basketball. They're not Ohio University. I'm just not picking on Ohio University, or they're not some mid-major just looking to get into the dance, winning their conference tournament. And yes, big celebration. We're in the postseason. And whatever happens, happens. This is not this. We should never expect that from the Milwaukee Brewers. They are not, they're a mid-major in terms of how they the financial situation of baseball, but never. They've won, they've got to the postseason 5 of the last 6 years. And I cannot look at that and say, well, at least they're getting there. They're getting to the big dance. No, they have failed numerous times. And this is a postseason failure right here, losing 2 games to the Arizona Diamondbacks. Now, Arizona appears to be on a roll. They blasted the Dodgers in game 1 of their series on Saturday. Would that have been on the Brewers? I don't know. Who knows how baseball works sometimes. But don't ever be satisfied with just getting to the postseason, because they got to take that next step. That is a necessary climb. It's not about, like 2008, just getting to the postseason, where CC dragged us into the postseason. This is about winning games, advancing, and winning the World Series. And if it's not possible, we shouldn't have a baseball team here in Milwaukee. We should not have a baseball. Our goal is not to win a World Series, which I think Mark Antanasio and Arnold and everybody, Counsell, all agree. That is our goal, winning a championship, not just getting to the postseason. So, as it turned out, I saw an ad on the internet last night, I think it was, for TBS, who's broadcasting the divisional series, Dodgers and Brewers, coming up at 8 o'clock on Monday night. Someone had the graphics prepared, but they threw the wrong ones up there. They probably prepared one for the Brewers, and they probably prepared one for Arizona playing the Dodgers. Somehow, the wrong one. In this day and injury, at this day and time, with cutbacks everywhere, and things getting dropped everywhere, we'll just blame it on that with TBS. All right, let's start with 2 players who I don't think are going to return before we get to the non-tenders. I think Carlos Santana and Josh Donaldson will not return. It was interesting that apparently that Rowdy Tellez, not that we care if he's got a problem, that he had a problem with Josh Donaldson. And then Josh, during the celebration, my favorite teammate. Now, I don't know what that was all about, but apparently some sort of problem. Not that Josh Donaldson not coming back to the team has anything to do with Rowdy Tellez. And we'll get to Rowdy here a little bit later on. But Josh Donaldson, yeah, he was here for, a couple of months, and he's done. He's no longer a star. We knew that coming over here, just hoping to find lightning in a bottle. But we need a new third baseman. Is it Tyler Black? I don't know. But we're done with Josh Donaldson. Carlos Santana, love the guy. He's in really good shape. I don't think I've seen Carlos in this good a shape. He was not in this type of shape. He looks thinner, slimmer than he did with the Pirates. However, not good enough at this point to play first base. Who's going to play first base? Well, barring a trade, I do at all expenses. I want Mark Canha back on this team, whether he's the first baseman or not. I don't know if there's a spot for him to play in the outfield because it's so crowded out there, but I do want Mark Canha back on this team. But as far as veterans, Santana, Donaldson, no. Canha, yes. Yes, I do. Okay, we come back. We're going to talk about some of the non-tenders and who should just hit the road and worry about moving on. Some thoughts about Counsell as well, and the future of this team. All that coming up next here on Locked On Brewers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. We are your team every day. Thank you, everydayers, for following us along on Google, Spotify, Apple, and all the major platforms. YouTube, you download the episodes every day. I see you guys out there downloading, putting the comments on YouTube, and I appreciate every one of it. And yeah, throughout the season, you've all joined me, you've all taken part, and just don't think it never goes unnoticed, because I do. I appreciate the fans like you would not believe. And I also appreciate Gametime for being a great sponsor here on Locked On Brewers. Gametime, Gametime, you shouldn't have to worry about buying tickets to your next event. You're going to a professional game, you're going to a Bucks game, you're going to a college game, sports, music, comedy, theater events. Gametime is fast and easy to buy tickets with. Killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, which I really like, and the best price guarantee. Those zone deals, those flash deals, those last-minute tickets, you're going to love that. And views from the seats, that is irreplaceable. See the view from your seat before you buy it. You'll know exactly where you are when you arrive. Gametime has deals right up to the start of the event. Could be for anything. Sports, concerts, theater, you name it, music. They have tickets for it all. Zone deals. And the Gametime guarantee means you'll get the best price. If you find tickets in the same section and row for less, Gametime will credit you 110% of the discount. Download the Gametime app, create an account, use the promo code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem the code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your purchase. Download that Gametime app first. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Chuck Freeman here on Locked On Brewers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Yeah, we'll get to those non-tendered and who should just hit the road. That's coming up next here on Locked On Brewers. Welcome back to Locked On Brewers. Chuck Freeman here. Monday rumblings. These thoughts just dancing in and out of my head all day. You know, I'm on the treadmill today, trying to lose some weight, getting ready for the off season. It's a constant process of doing that 3 days a week and trying to eat right and all that. And as I was doing that, I was thinking about the non-tenders. And that's coming up. You know, you got to tender these guys a contract by mid-November. And then we'll see what happens, whether they go to arbitration. But guys, I would non-tender on this team. Bryce Wilson is one. I know Bryce had a solid year. But I think he's going to come back to the mean a little bit. The long range on him was, I mean, the overall body of work for this year was great. With the Pirates, not so good. I think he's going to be more, my gut feeling is, we'll see somewhere along the way with how he was like with the Pittsburgh Pirates, because that's the way it usually goes with relievers. You know, unless you're the great one, one of the upper echelon guys. But these guys who are the run-of-the-mill guys who have career years, most of the time, they come back down to life. And just for that sake alone, my gut feeling says don't tender Bryce Wilson. Rowdy Tellez, absolutely not. We're done with Rowdy. He had his bobblehead. He had his 15 minutes of fame with the Milwaukee Brewers. Wasn't on the postseason roster. And how can you tender a guy who was a starter, heart of the order guy for most of the season? How can you even tender him a contract? You're not going to. That's why. Joey Wiemer. Man, I don't know why he was on the postseason roster to begin with. I don't know if I want Joey Wiemer part of this team going forward. But you're going to have to, because there might be something there. So I'm on the fence with him right now. Yeah, I think I'll do it. But see, the outfield situation is so crowded right now with Frelick, Mitchell, Churio, we think is going to be on this team. Taylor, Perkins, possibly. You know, the outfield, there's 6 guys fitting into 2 spots out there. Plus you add Marcana and Yelich will be in left. But I don't know. I have to think a little bit about the Wiemer situation. Lauer is done. Tyrone Taylor, because he was so hot in September, I would have said in July, no, but I would still tender him at this point. I would. I'd take a chance. Do I think he's going to be a great player? No, but I think he's going to be better than serviceable. And I know we got enough of those guys. And you don't win championships with 15 serviceable guys. But as of right now, Tyrone Taylor is coming back to this team. Adrian Hauser, I'd tender him. I would. Now, I've said some things in the past, not bad things, but Adrian Hauser was a very good 5th starter for this team. He was a very good 5th starter. And maybe could move up to the 4th starter spot. I don't know if he's not a 3rd starter. But if you trade Corbin Burnes in the offseason, you have Hauser, who's a proven commodity. So if you think you're trading Burnes in the offseason, maybe not tender. tender him, but I'm leaning 75% yes, let's tender him right now. As of right now, as a few days after the season, I'd like to tender him. But as far as, trading guys in the offseason, the way I feel right now, I don't know if you're going to get much for Willy Adames. So you're probably going to have him back at shortstop next year. I don't think, trading him, if he had the year he did last year, that's different. I don't think there's much value with Adames, a guy who's going to hit you 214 and 24 home runs. Now, I could be wrong. You have to, God, that Woody injury, that hurt them in a number of different areas. It did. Not only could he not start in game 2, but with Woody, God, you want him to be part of this future. You hate to give him money, and then it's like a Teddy Higuera situation where you give him the big contract. And if you guys remember, in the late 80s, Teddy had the shoulder injury, and they gave him a big contract, and he never was the same and was guaranteed. Now, it was 3 years, 12 million, I want to say. But that 3 years, 12 million, that was a lot of money back in 1989. Okay. Now, of course, with a guy like Brandon Wood, if you'd step on your tongue if you could give him that kind of contract. But to give him a few $100 million contract, you can't do that, obviously. But he's got another year of arbitration. You're definitely tendering him, but you don't know what the future is going to be like in your starting rotation. And that's when you're planning on your baseball team, you kind of like to know that. You just don't know if he's going to come back from this, if this is going to be one of these things that's going to happen, because it's happened twice now within a span of a year, in a span of 6 or 7 months. So that's the downside of that. Burnes, as much as I like Corbin, and I'm going to throw how he pitched in the postseason aside, I'm going to have to trade Corbin Burnes and get me some offensive pieces. Yeah, I don't want to do it, but let's face it, they're not signing him to an extension. They're not signing him to a major contract. This upcoming season was probably going to be his last season. So I would trade Burnes in the offseason. Get whatever you can, multiple pieces. Get multiple pieces, hopefully some offense. But when other teams know you want to trade a guy, it might be a little more difficult to, obviously. So his value was probably worth more last year, obviously, because he had 2 years left of team control. But I would trade him in the offseason. I'd love to trade Adames. You probably can't and get anything worth it. Burnes, you definitely would trade. You definitely would trade and get some pieces. And you hope that Woody heals up with arms and shoulders and elbows. You just never know. All right, we come back. I'm going to talk about a few interesting things are going to happen, how we keep up with the Joneses, or the Joneses keep up with us in the NL Central. That's coming up next here on Locked On Brewers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. We are your team every day. Chuck Freeman here on Locked On Brewers. Thank you, everybody, for joining me. As always, we're not done with the episode, but I want to tell you that you can download us on Google, Spotify, Apple. We're on all the major podcasts out there. Of course, go to YouTube, search Locked On Brewers, hit the subscribe button, hit that bell. That'll alert you every time we drop an episode here on Locked On Brewers. And please follow me on Twitter, Chuck Freeman, Freimund. Vinny Rottino is going to be joining us a little bit later on in the week. I didn't want to catch up with Vinny during the season. I'm a fan of his. He told me he's a fan of mine. So we'll have a love fest with Vinny Rottino coming up on Thursday and get his points. I think the world of him as a broadcaster. I don't really know him as a person, getting to know each other. He is in the broadcast booth, but I think, as I've mentioned here on the podcast, Vinny does a hell of a job. He does. I love him on the broadcast. And, I think I like him on Twitter and everything. Follow him and all, but we'll get him on the show coming up a little bit later on in the week. All right, we'll come right back and we'll give you some thoughts about what some of our enemies in this division are doing. That's next here on Locked On Brewers. Hi, everybody. Chuck Freeman, Locked On Brewers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. We are your team every day. Pete Alonso, there was rumors of him going to the Brewers right around the trading deadline. That never happened. Yeah, I would still, if I could get one more, and he's only got a club year of control, I would get Pete Alonso. It sounds like the Cubs might be interested in the Alonso would have interest in the Cubs. We don't want Pete Alonso with the Cubs. We do not want Pete Alonso with the Cubs. I do not want to see him there, even for 1 year of control, because I think they'd re-sign him anyway. I don't want Pete Alonso in our division. I don't want him anywhere near a radius of Milwaukee at all. Don't want him in this division. Don't want him anywhere. So, but I read some things that Pete Alonso, apparently the Cubs are interested in trading for Pete Alonso. The Cardinals, another enemy. The Cardinals are down right now. Let's hope that they don't pick themselves off the mat too quickly. But last place is intolerable in the city of St. Louis for the Cardinals. And I saw some reports that they're interested in Sonny Gray, who's pitching in the playoffs right now with the Twins, and Aaron Nola, who is with the Phillies pitching in the playoffs. They are eyeing up both of those guys right now. And both will be free agents. Aaron Nola and Sonny Gray. Cardinals are eyeing up both of those guys right now. So that's very interesting. The Brewers have to worry about getting better. And getting better offensively starts with trading Corbin Burnes. Now, I don't want to, but because of the financial situations, because it's such a wreck, unfortunately, with a club like Milwaukee, you have to, when you get to that final year of that deal, you got to trade him because you're in danger of losing him. And there's no way they're going to trade him, or there's no way they're going to re-sign him. And you know what? If they were going to re-sign him, they would have given in on arbitration last year. Why spend $750,000 for a pitcher you're not going to have here long term? That was a business decision. Yeah, it ticked Woody off. Some Brewer fans didn't like it. It didn't affect his season. Certainly didn't affect the way he pitched in the postseason. But that was a business decision by the Milwaukee Brewers, and I agree. Because, players make business decisions, and the Players Association makes business decisions. So I'm with the owners in this one. Yeah, why dole out an extra $750,000 if he's not going to be part of your long-term plan? In fact, if he's going to be part of your long-term plan, why would you do it anyway? If you can get him cheaper, it's a business decision. It's not being cheap at all. It's not being cheap. And this one, I'm with the owners here. What else? William Contreras. He was their offensive MVP. We talked about him a lot. He had 600 plate appearances this year. His career high was 375 last year with Atlanta. But as we've talked about, he was a guy you had to run out there every day, whether he was catching or DHing, because you couldn't take him out of the lineup because he was so effective and so good offensively. Clutch hits. Now, he struck out the final at-bat to end the season, but obviously he was very good for most of the season. 600 plate appearances. He smashed his career high of 376. 376. The future is very bright with the Milwaukee Brewers. I'm excited for this offseason. They need to get better offensively. They need some guys who can be threats with the home run ball at the plate. Having Willy Adames as your home run leader says a lot about your team. You weren't a power-driven team. All right? And when you played the small ball, get him on, get him over, get him in, you couldn't get him in. You couldn't play ABC baseball because you were a terrible clutch hitting team. You need more power on this team. You need some guys who can be threats. I would love to get Pete Alonso on this team. Yeah, you only have 1 year of control, but putting a big-time threat in the middle of the lineup, I don't care if it costs you one of your young guys. I don't care who it costs. I don't care. I mean, except for Jackson, for Chourio. I would not trade Chourio. That's about it. Everybody else, young guys, on the table. And I know some of you guys don't want to hear that, but we're talking Pete Alonso here. But the future is going to be bright. They're going to have to do something about this crowded outfield spot with Mitchell, Chourio, Taylor, Weimer, and Perkins, and Frelick. You got 6 guys playing 2 positions. Okay. Chourio's got to be on the opening, unless he bombs out in spring training. Okay. Chourio, I think he's proven enough. He only struck out once in his 1 week in AAA. He's got to be on this Brewer roster next season. You find room for him, and you play him right from the beginning. Garrett Mitchell is my guy as well. Those are my right and center fielders as of right now. Churio's on this team. Mitchell, provided he passes all the tests with the shoulder. Mitchell is my outfielder as well. We got lots to talk about in this offseason. This is just the tip of the iceberg. We're going to have guests. We're going to analyze things. We'll talk about what Matt Arnold said on Tuesday when he has his press conference with the media. Not that he's going to give us the keys to the kingdom, as Ted Thompson would say, but we might be able to read a few things on the leaves. How about that? It's going to do it. Chuck Freeman, Locked On Brewers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. SiriusXM, you get the postseason on SiriusXM. Go to them. They've been great with us all season long. And go to SiriusXM for all your postseason coverage. We'll talk to you tomorrow, everybody. Chuck Freeman on Locked On Brewers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. We are your team every day.